Hey everyone, it's Matt with Redline Studios in New York City, here with another Way Back Wednesday. Way Back Wednesdays are when I revisit past productions, pitch meetings, or post edit room events to use as teaching tools for young film and television professionals to gain knowledge from. Many of these videos will take a look at problems I encountered as a producer and how I dealt with them and how I put out potential fires. Today's Way Back Wednesday moment is taken from Revisiting Fetish with Joan Collins. Today, I'm going to revisit a scene from a film I directed called Fetish with Joan Collins. This scene takes place near the beginning of the film inside a TV studio, and the idea was to create kind of this world within a world. We start with a shot, which then becomes a shot on the set, immediately signaling to the audience that we're inside a TV stage. Another shot I loved here was this boom up to reveal a microphone above the two main characters, kind of reminding us that there is this voyeurism going on. It is inherent in film and television. Someone's always watching you. There is always an audience. When we look at this shot too, I remember in the edit, we kind of go from hearing our actors in a normal speaking tone to hearing them through the headphones of someone who's kind of listening on in the shadows.
Always expect the opposite reaction.
Okay, so how am I doing so far?
Well, what do you think I think?
Well, what do you think I think you think?
I think that they think that you think that I think that you're wonderful.
In post, I remember we affected this audio so it transitions from going from the onset sound to feeling like it's directly in someone's ear. And I really wanted this sequence to feel almost kind of like this weird limbo purgatory type setting. I remember we even filmed a sign language interpreter on set, even though there's no viewable audience, and so we just kind of wanted to play up the weird factor. Every shot in this sequence was storyboarded, not just for framing, but for how I wanted the scene to play out in the edit. Let's take a quick look at the set design. I really wanted a simple, minimalistic set here. Growing up, I watched a ton of late night TV, from Johnny Carson to Letterman, and even a little Tom Snyder, who I admittedly thought sucked, but I did enjoy watching him bomb. And so Tom Snyder's set used to be this just completely dark, sparse, minimal nothing. And I always thought it was kind of funny, and I kind of wanted to revisit that here and emulate that. So I was going for something like that, but with kind of a little weird, like self-indulgent twist. I wanted my main characters almost like sitting on this human head to make this set feel like it was alive. Yes, these two people are literally sitting on someone's face. I also drew inspiration, believe it or not, from the old Super Nintendo game Star Fox. And if you played that game to the end, you reach the end boss and it's kind of this polymetric face. It's strange and it's weird. I still remember it vividly today, and I was trying to kind of recreate something similar for this set design. Now, here's an interesting thing. Initially, when we started to break down this film, I considered using my own soundstage here in Manhattan to shoot this scene in, but the reality was it's too small to achieve the look I wanted. I would have had to cut corners for budgetary reasons, so instead I chose a friend's midtown space and we shot it there. The point of all that? When you're making a film, you should be making decisions that serve the film's creative process and not your bank account. The final design of the set was pretty simple, but also kind of striking. These two heavy-duty flats with space for two TVs that we pre-recorded Eyes to Live on, and a nose sculpture made from plaster Paris, and this rotating kind of platform with big red lips that we kind of custom built. Now, I do remember also making a compromise here as a director. My original plan was that I wanted this set to rotate in a 360 way, kind of like a giant Lazy Susan, but we just didn't have the budget to make it work. And so it's one of those things that it was my idea. I would have loved to see how it came to be, but I had to kind of scrap it because we just didn't have the time or money to make it work. And that is what filmmaking is. Sometimes you got to pick the sword you're going to die on, and this wasn't one that I thought was worth it. Now, here's something funny. I mentioned this in other videos in talking about Fetish, but when we started to film here on set, we didn't know this was going to happen. The eyes on the video screens started to fall out of sync. And at first, as a director, I was majorly bummed and I was annoyed. But then, you know what? I started to realize that jittery effect made the scene even more disturbing. So sometimes Happy accidents are the best creative moments waiting to happen. Working with Joan Collins in this movie was awesome. And I remember in this early scene, her and I had not really done a lot of on set stuff yet. So this was pretty early on in the film in terms of the shooting schedule. And now here's something funny that happened. Joan's character was supposed to be this kind of high profile, high maintenance, easily agitated character. So to pull some of that energy out of her, I decided to experiment a bit and I sent in 2 extras to apply hair and makeup and give her some water unannounced. So think about it this way. We're filming this movie and we have hair and makeup on set and we have PAs. And we're filming a scene about a TV show. So there's also actors and extras who are PAs and hair and makeup people. So it's kind of blurred lines. And so I was trying to cause a little bit of confusion to Joan, where she was not aware, were these our actual hair and makeup people or were they actors in the film trying to be a part of the scene? While Joan is kind of giving her lines, I remember sending in our on-camera makeup and hair person to interrupt the scene without telling her. So I was hoping that she wouldn't know if this was part of the show and part of the film or part of our actual production team. And I wanted to take her by surprise and I wanted to see what she would do and how she would react. And she delivered perfectly. Now, I'm not going to lie, her initial reaction, she kind of swats somebody away. And then I instinctively thought, oh man, she's pissed. She thinks that this is one of our crew that I am kind of interrupting her performance for. But then I started to realize, oh no, she knew exactly what I was doing. Even though it wasn't scripted, it wasn't planned, she knew this was part of the little chess game I was playing with her of trying to basically piss her off as a character in the film. And she just responded perfectly to it. And she was such a pro. And I loved her for that. So let's talk a little bit about problem solving and post-production. Now, I had this idea where on set, I wanted to have this pill kind of glow, but it didn't work. And I really didn't figure out how to achieve it on set. So later in post, I'm sitting there kind of grumbling to the colorist and saying, oh, this pill was supposed to be glowing and we just kind of scrapped it. So of course he goes, well, I could do that now, right? And I kind of, didn't really think of it as a color thing. I thought of it more of as a VFX thing, but we were able to kind of give this pill a little bit of glow in color and it was all I needed. And it's just another example of always trying to add elements to your film to heighten what's already there. This was one of my favorite moments of the post process, kind of working with my good friend Alexis Van Herkman, always looking to push the envelope, always looking to add more than is expected, and always looking to go beyond the basic. So a few takeaways to consider. When making a film, pick spaces that serve your vision, not your wallet. Push your actors respectfully. Blur the reality and performance lines. Magic happens when people, and especially talented actors, respond with authenticity. Not every proper effect is going to work on set, but there's still ways to get it done in post. Remember, filmmaking is a mix of planning, improvisation, and trusting your team. Fetish is a perfect example of that. It was fun, it was an experimental playground, and revisiting this scene reminds me of why taking risks is always worth it. I hope you enjoyed this Way Back Wednesday revisit of a project from our archives and found the information and advice helpful. If you have more questions about this specific shoot or any production you see featured on our website at www.redlinestudios.net, I encourage you to write us at insideredlinestudios@gmail.com.